A Less Than Royal Narcissist, part 42.2. Hello, and welcome back to this ongoing analysis and discussion appertaining to those that are labelled as the Shuggers, the obsessive followers of Meghan Markle. In part 42.1, I was detailing some of their characteristics, and I shall continue. Invariably, those that are seen as critical of Meghan Markle face the allegation that they are racist. Yet, the comments that are made, and one actually looks at the information, one can see that the comments, not all of course, some are racist, but the majority that are made are observations about the behaviour. And it's nothing to do with her race. Indeed, many people didn't even realise that she would be identified as biracial. To look at her, many people would say she looks more Mediterranean than she does biracial. But leaving all of that aside, the fact is that many of the criticisms are nothing to do with race. They are based upon the behaviour, not the skin colour, not culture, even though Meghan Markle, through her life so far, has always ordinarily identified more with being white than being biracial or black. However, this is a point that escapes the Shuggers. They fail to see that the comment is about behaviour, and, for instance, that with regard to my work, is an analysis about narcissism. You criticise Meghan Markle, you are automatically a racist. And the difficulty with bandying such a phrase around is that it then causes empathy fatigue amongst people, so that where people are suffering genuine racist behaviour, that is not taken as seriously. And of course, the tunnel-visioned Shuggers fail to realise that if you overuse an allegation, you dilute its impact, and it actually threatens the individuals who are being badly treated and discriminated against. But of course, that goes completely over their heads. The allegation that they squawk, "You don't know her." Entertainingly, I've seen that written towards me a few times. And of course, these dolts don't realise, well, actually, I have met her. And so I can speak from a position of both private and public information. Leaving that aside, even the fact of saying, "You don't know her," well, that doesn't prevent somebody from having an opinion about somebody based upon the information and evidence that they have seen. It's a little bit like saying, "The surface of the sun is extremely hot." And then the Shugger would squawk, "You've never been to the sun! How would you know?" Oh, okay, so I actually have to experience something and physically be there in order to form a considered view upon it. I can't look at a raft of material, make my own mind up. The simple fact that because I haven't met somebody means that I'm not allowed an opinion or a valid observation about them. So presumably, if you watch a film, you're not allowed to comment on it unless you made the film and you were actually in the film, extending that logic. Of course, what they are trying to drive at is to say that people form their views based upon information that's contained in the media and not actual physical interaction with her. But the point is that whilst there will be some individuals that label Meghan Markle in an unpleasant way based purely upon some column inches about her, many of the individuals that comment on her have done so in an intelligent and considered way by looking at actual evidence of what is reported across a variety of sources, not just one. When I have undertaken the analysis of Meghan Markle for the purposes of the very series, I have gone through a considerable amount of material before reaching the conclusion as to the fact that she was a narcissist. It wasn't a knee-jerk consideration. It wasn't a sudden dismissive analysis that that's what she was and is. It's a considered view taken from a range of private and public sources. But the squawk of "you don't know her" is just bandied out without any consideration for the basis on which the person has expressed a view about Meghan Markle. And moreover, it can also blow up in their own faces. Well, you don't know her either. So how is it that you're allowed to choose positive press about her and dismiss anything negative? Could it not be the case that the positive press isn't accurate because, hey, sugar, you haven't met her either? Of course, that would be too great an extension of a logical appreciation of the argument for them to grasp. You're a hater. No, it's simply an expression of a view based upon evidence, and particularly with regard to a less than royal narcissist, it's an analysis. As I've explained before, I actually find Meghan Markle a rather dull individual, but she's a very useful vehicle for the purposes of demonstrating narcissism in action. There is no hatred there. The sugars will bandy around, "You're jealous." Well, what they actually mean is, "You're envious." Jealousy is where you're jealous of something that you might lose. For instance, a narcissist is jealous of power. They don't want to lose it. Whereas you might be envious of your neighbour's car. But leaving that distinction aside, this is bandied around again without any actual appreciation of the view that has been put forward. Most people are not envious of Meghan Markle in the slightest. They don't want to be her. They don't want the lifestyle that she has. They are merely commenting upon it. But of course, to the obsessed chugger, it's a simple squawk of "you're jealous" in order to try and reject the view that has been put forward. You're obsessed with her. This is often squawked by the sugar towards the detractors of Meghan Markle. Often they don't understand the nature of an obsession, and the fact that where there is an ongoing fluid situation, repeated comment about an individual is not obsession. For instance, are news channels obsessed with the news because they report it? No. That's what they do. And therefore, where there is a very useful example, which of course many people want to listen to and view, then that will be utilised. And anybody that is determined to pass comment upon Meghan Markle faces being accused of being obsessed, even if there is no evidence whatsoever. It might have been their first comment. Indeed, the sugar will not have even taken any time to appraise whether the commentator has actually said anything about Meghan Markle previously. The very fact that you're commenting on her means you're obsessed, and again undermines the strength of what they're saying. Finally, the praise of "she's a strong, independent woman." What evidence do you have for that? Is it the fact that she's globally famous? Well, if so, that arose as a consequence of who she married. Before that, she was a bit-part actress on a hardly heard-of show called Suits. Perhaps, then, you mean that she's a strong and independent woman because of her earning capacity. Oh, wait a moment. She married a multimillionaire and then has been able to leverage that to make more money. Maybe she's a strong and independent woman because of her humanitarian gestures. Oh, but then that only just started as a consequence of, let me think. Yes, who she married. Then again, maybe it's as a consequence of all of the other work that she's undertaking. For instance, doing the voiceover for Disney. No, Disney did not contract with Meghan Markle. They contracted with the Duchess of Sussex, as like any business will know that the royal family creates interest around the world, and that equates to cash money. How did she get that title? Was it because she was a strong and independent woman? No, it was because of who she married. Perhaps it's now she's a strong and independent woman because she has access to a range of influential and powerful people. No, because they didn't exist previously, so perhaps that's only come about as the fact of who she married. So these repeated protestations that she's a strong and independent woman, that if she's that strong and independent woman, why is it that she's become famous off the back of a man, become wealthy off the back of a man, has become wealthy off the back of her connections, that she's obtained those connections off the basis of who she's married. How she ploughed her own furrow in that regard. One can point to plenty of strong and independent women who have achieved fame, power, wealth, influence, without piggybacking off either the nature of the marriage or the extension of an institution. She is not one of them. And again, the accusation of she's a strong independent woman to shout people down is a calling card of the sugar, which doesn't stand up to analysis. Commonly, the sugar exhibits that English is a second language, has no understanding of the royal family whatsoever and what that actually involves, and sees Meghan Markle as a poster girl for some vague concept associated with someone living their best life, one of the most odious phrases that's recently come into existence, even though Meghan Markle has absolutely nothing in common with said sugar. Their lives are completely incomparable. Yet, foolishly, the sugar attaches to Meghan Markle, trying to achieve some kind of vicarious meaning in their life from an individual that would look at them as if they had trod in something nasty. The sugar's habitat is the internet, where it both feeds on the contrary views of others and squawks in the manner of the various ways that I have described earlier, seeking to bully other inhabitants of the habitat into either submission or retreat. The sugar becomes deaf and blind in the face of any evidence which contradicts their tunnel vision, and therefore it has to engage in the liberal spraying of word salad and firing derogatory feces all around. The sugar operates to double standards, claiming to be a loving, empathic humanitarian, as a misguided carbon copy of their idol, whilst engaging in behaviour which is hateful, unempathic, and distinctly absent of humanitarianism. Although, through the squawking that they engage in when their contradictions are pointed out, for instance, with regard to their treatment of Prince Charles when he contracted coronavirus, the sugar stomps into the domain of others with a sense of entitlement, a lack of boundary recognition, and dumps its foul, misguided views where it sees fit. There's a complete absence of considered constructive dialogue. They lack the capacity for reasoned debate or an appreciation of evidence, and rely on the same squawked comments over and over and over again. So this is a pen portrait of some of the behaviours. Many of you listening will recognise this and identify, having come up against it yourself on the various social media platforms, often finding that they suddenly make a post that's about the demise of Prince Philip all about Meghan Markle, bringing the attention back onto her just as she would want. But in part 3, I'm going to address the question, who are they, and why is it that they are unable to see through what Meghan Markle really is? Join me for that further analysis.